Hello, my name is Ibrahim Traore. You might know me as a young military leader, someone you call a radical or an anti-Western dictator, but today I'm here to tell the truth. I'm speaking directly to big news companies like CNN, BBC, France 24, New York Times, Washington Post, The Guardian, and Le Monde. I'm watching you. I'm keeping track of every lie you tell, every story you twist, and every truth you hide. This time, you can't turn off my voice. You can't shut off your cameras or edit my words. The world you used to control is gone. Millions of people will hear me now, without your filters, without your lies. I'm 34 years old. I grew up hearing your stories about Africa. As a child, I watched your news on TV. The pictures were always the same. Hungry children with flies on their faces, dry lands, wars and death. You told us this is Africa. You made us feel ashamed of our home, our people and our land. We believed you because we were young and didn't know better. But as I grew older, I started to read, ask questions and learn. I realized the Africa you showed us wasn't real. It was a story you made up. You wrote a script for us, and it was full of lies. The false story of Africa. You, the big news companies, have shown Africa in a bad way for years. You make it look like Africans are not human, like we are wild people who can't take care of ourselves. You show us as poor, helpless and lost, waiting for you to save us. Every day your TV screens and newspapers talk about hunger, war, sickness, corruption, terror and chaos. These are the only words you use for Africa. You never talk about hope, success, growth, strength, honor, pride or victories. Why? Because those words don't fit the story you want to tell. Let me ask you, have you ever made Africa's successes your big headlines? Have you told the world about Rwanda's amazing technology growth? Have you shown Ethiopia's huge project to plant millions of trees? Have you praised Botswana for its strong democracy? Have you talked about Kenya's smart business ideas and young entrepreneurs? No, you haven't. Those stories don't fit your plan. In your story, Africa can't be successful. If Africa is doing well, how can you justify taking our resources? If we're not poor and weak, why would we need your help? If we're not backward, how can you look down on us? I want to ask the people who run your newsrooms, have you ever thought about why Africa, a land full of riches, has so many poor people? Let me give you some facts, real numbers that show the truth. Africa's wealth and poverty. Africa has so much wealth, but our people don't see it. Here are some examples. Cobalt. Africa has 70% of the world's cobalt. Cobalt is used in your cell phones, computers, and electric cars. Most of it comes from Congo, but the people in Congo can't afford phones or computers. Why? Platinum. Africa has 90% of the world's platinum. Platinum is used in car parts, electronics, and medical tools. It comes from South Africa, but South Africans struggle with unemployment and poverty. Gold. Africa produces 30% of the world's gold. Countries like Mali, Burkina Faso, Ghana, and Tanzania have huge gold mines, but our people live in poverty while gold flows out of our lands. Diamonds. Africa supplies 65% of the world's diamonds. Countries like Botswana, Angola, Congo, and Sierra Leone produce billions of dollars worth of diamonds. But miners in those countries earn just $1 a day. Uranium. Africa has 35% of the world's uranium, which powers nuclear plants. Niger, Namibia, and South Africa produce it. Your cities, like Paris, have electricity because of our uranium, but our villages stay dark. You ask, why is Africa poor? That's the wrong question. The real question is, how is Africa kept poor when it's so rich? The answer is simple. Colonialism never ended. It just changed its face. How colonialism continues. In the past, you came to Africa with armies and took our lands. Now you come with companies and contracts. You used to rule us with whips and guns. Now you control us with loans and deals. Let me give you examples with names, numbers and facts. Lancor. This is a Swiss company that mines cobalt in Congo. In 2022, they made $256 billion in revenue. But they paid Congo only $500 million in taxes. That's just 0.2% of their earnings. Is that fair? Rio Tinto. This British-Australian company mines bauxite in Guinea. They take out 20 million tons every year. What does Guinea get? Pollution and sickness. Total Energies. This French oil company works in Angola, Nigeria, and Congo. In 2022, they made $36 billion in profit. But they leave behind old, dirty pipelines and poor communities. Anglo American. This company started in South Africa but is now based in London. They take diamonds, platinum and iron. What's left in South Africa? Millions of unemployed miners. These are just a few examples. There's more you don't see. Secret deals, hidden bank accounts and tricks to avoid taxes. Every year, $88 billion leaves Africa illegally. That's money stolen from our people. You write about the $45 billion in aid that comes to Africa, but you don't talk about the wealth that leaves. Africa isn't receiving aid, it's giving aid to the world. The system that keeps Africa poor. There's a system that keeps Africa poor, and it works like this. Create corruption. You bribe our leaders. You give them secret bank accounts and promise them a fancy life. You send their children to your schools. In return, they sell our resources to you. Make unfair deals. You get long contracts. 50 years, even 99 years to take our resources. You ask for tax breaks and ignore rules about protecting the environment or workers' rights. Control infrastructure. You take over our ports, airports and railways, but only to move resources from mines to ships. You don't build roads for our villages or bring electricity to our schools. Provide security. You set up private security companies and arm them. If people protest, you call them rebels or terrorists. Silence the media. You pay local journalists to stay quiet. You stop voices that speak against you. You show the world only the bad news about Africa, like wars and unrest. This system has been working for over 100 years. You, the big news companies, are part of it. Your biggest advertisers are the same companies that take Africa's resources, oil companies, mining companies and arms dealers. You take their money, so you protect their interests. The truth about France, Britain, America and China. Let me tell you about the systems used by powerful countries to control Africa. France and the CFA France. 14 African countries still use a currency controlled by France called the CFA France. Half of these countries' money is kept in the French treasury. France charges us to use our own money. Every year $500 billion in resources flows from Africa to France. When France gives $10 billion in aid, you make it big news. But you don't talk about the $500 billion they take. Britain and money laundering. London is the world center for hiding stolen money. Africa's wealth is moved through places like Jersey, Guernsey, the Cayman Islands and the Virgin Islands, all controlled by Britain. You don't write about this. America and military control. The US has 46 military bases in Africa through its Africa Command. They say it's for security, but it's really about controlling our resources. Drones fly over our skies every day watching us. They say they're fighting terrorists, but they target leaders who stand up for Africa. China's new game. China says they want to help Africa by building roads and giving loans, but in return they take 99-year contracts for our ports, mines and farmland. Countries like Sri Lanka and Zambia are now trapped in debt to China. Is this really win-win? You don't write about these things because you're not free. You're controlled by billionaires. Jeff Bezos owns the Washington Post. Rupert Murdoch controls Fox News, the Wall Street Journal and the Times. Carlos Slim, a Mexican billionaire, is a major shareholder in the New York Times. These people didn't get rich by helping Africa. They got rich by exploiting places like Africa and Latin America. Your editors come from elite schools like Harvard, Yale, Oxford and Cambridge. They share the same ideas and biases. Your reporters in Africa often don't speak our languages, like Swahili, Hausa, Yoruba or Amharic. They can't talk to our people, so they rely on Western diplomats and NGOs for information. How can you call that fair reporting? The heroes they silenced. Let me tell you about the African leaders you've ignored or lied about. Patrice Lumumba, he was the leader of Congo, killed on January 17, 1961. The CIA and Belgian mercenaries were involved. They dissolved his body in acid and kept his teeth as souvenirs. In 2022, Belgium returned one tooth to his family after 61 years. You called it chaos in Congo, but didn't investigate the killers, or Belgium's crimes. Thomas Sankara, he was my hero, the leader of Burkina Faso, killed on October 15th. Sankara vaccinated 2.5 million children, planted 10 million trees, raised literacy from 13% to 73%, gave women equal rights, banned harmful practices, and fought corruption. He refused to pay Africa's unfair debts to the West. France supported his killer, Blaise Compaoré. You called it a military coup, but didn't tell the world about Sankara's dreams, or successes. Muammar Gaddafi. Yes, he was a dictator, but he did a lot for Libya. Under him, Libya had a high income, free healthcare, free education, and cheap fuel. He built a huge irrigation project to make the desert green. His biggest dream was a united Africa, with its own bank and currency. He was killed on October 20th, 2011, after NATO attacked Libya. Hillary Clinton laughed about it. Now Libya has 3 governments, civil war, and even slave markets. You call this democracy? These leaders were killed because they stood up for Africa. They wanted us to control our own wealth and future, but you didn't tell their stories. You called them dictators, or said their countries were chaotic. You didn't show their successes, or ask who was behind their deaths. Africa is rising. I'm speaking today because it's time for the truth. The world you controlled, where you could hide Africa's story, is gone. People are waking up. We're tired of your lies. We're tired of being shown as poor and helpless. Africa is rich, not just in resources, but in people, ideas and strength. We're building our future, and we won't let you write our story anymore. I know speaking out is risky. Telling the truth might cost me my life, like it did for Lumumba, Sankara, and Gaddafi. But I'm not afraid. Africa is rising, and we need everyone to join us. If you're inspired by this message, share it, talk about it. Tell the world the truth about Africa. Support leaders who fight for our people, like I'm trying to do in Burkina Faso. Together we can change the story. We can show the world who we really are, not the Africa you see on CNN or BBC, but the real Africa, full of hope, pride and power. Thank you for listening. Let's make Africa's voice heard. Let's build a future where our children aren't ashamed of who they are. Africa is rising. Be part of the change.